right, Shalom, Shalom, Barakatah Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakodash, double honors to our apostles and elder bishops here at Great Millstone. Shalom to your brothers that's pushing the work in truth with all sincerity. Name of this one is in these times, there's nothing too small to ignore. In these times, there's nothing too small to ignore. I want to start here, okay, and pretty much get into what kind of drew up this lesson. Ecclesiasticus chapter 5, verse 15, be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small. Okay, so as we see the war looming and things, the dramatics of the war, Nero and his dramatics and others, you got to take notice of what's happening in the background, and for the most part, these nations are in cahoots with each other, and at some point they're going to oust, the problem maker, which is, Babylon the Great, because it's prophecy, that these nations are going to turn against, the mother of all harlots. Okay. Um, and yeah, as far as we can see, we're on par. Everything that's happening, all right, is we on par, you know, and things may seem stagnant, which it's not, this man Nero just said he's about to obliterate a whole nation of people, which is insane, but, that's the devil, and that's how their mind works. They become very hysterical and, unreasonable, and, they're willing to do anything, when they get angry. And a brother made a statement about Nero, you know, um, and I believe it was the brother out there in Hawaii, Kabari Howard. I think he may mention that if Trump, and I'm not quoting him verbatim, but Trump doesn't get what he wants, he might turn his anger on Jake here in the States, and and he pretty much referenced Antiochus, all right, Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth. You know, um, the history during the Greek Empire as they were, you know, taking over the known world at that time. Antiochus wanted to, I believe, take over Egypt, and he was stopped, and he was very angry and wroth, and he turned his anger against, Judah, you know, and he massacred, our people, and but that's just the Edomite spirit, I just want to point that out, because who knows? But as we watch, you know, there's a lot of things taking place in the background while Esau is, you know, looking to take your attention from the most important things. So be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small. The other day I seen this. Let me see. Mexico. President. Digital payments. I think she want to go permanent. Oops. Gas pumps. Okay. Here. A few articles here. Let's see here. Mexico to ban cash at the pump and the toll booth. All right. The Mexican president, she was just I think it's Scheinberg or something like that. Scheinbaum. There we go, Claudia. And she was just speaking on that. She made a public statement about that. Mexico to phase out cash payments at gas stations and toll booths. You know, and that's just little tidbit. Those are those tidbit things that's happening behind the scenes. A lot of these countries continue to go cashless, and ultimately that's all leading to what we've been, starting with our apostles and elders, elder bishops have been saying that the mark of the beast and the MOTB system being put in place. Okay, they're going to phase out the dollar, and then eventually they're going to draw the world into this new way, this new way of buying and selling. All right, which is completely off. But hey, all right, Mexico to ban cash at the pump and the toll booth. All right, Scheinbaum orders digital only payments by end of 2026. So we can see, even though it's just a small thing, it's really not small. It's not too small. All right, to ignore. Because there's plenty of other nations who are doing the same thing. They're following the lead. Of these other nations, mainly, Babylon the Great and other nations. All right. So standing before the assembled leadership of Mexico's banking sector, President Claudia Sheinbaum delivered an announcement that will reshape the daily routines of millions of Mexican drivers. Cash will no longer be accepted at the country's gas stations or highway toll booths before the end of 2026. Digital payment, she said, is not a suggestion. It is a mandate. See, it's a mandate digital cash, digital payments. All right. A lot of other countries are going to follow suit. Okay. Funny. But anyway, just reading this headline over here. But yeah, man. So you can't ignore the small stuff, and it's really not small. All right. But they're going to be targeting the transportation systems, for lack of better words. People driving. Okay, in order to drive, they're gonna overhaul. How you pay. For gas, pay to travel. Okay, because this covers a lot of people. All right, and then they're just getting people's minds ready for what's going to be, the standard. Okay, and that's why, in this for us, it's just watching, watching and seeing what's, these times, what's things are happening in these times, because you don't want to get caught off guard. All right. Here, this is Matthew 24 and 44. All right. And this is what pretty much the Lord said about those who watch. All right. Here I start at 42. Okay, watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, right? Because the Lord's going to come as a thief. He's going to surprise these people with the different punishments that he has, coming. All right. He would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. A lot of your houses are going to be broken up because you're not watching on what's the transition that this world is taking. All right. We told you, starting with our elder apostles, elder bishops, okay, all the way on down to, the brothers, man. We've been warning you of what's to come, great reset, the world changing completely, because it's never going to go back to that normal that people suspect. So here it says, therefore, be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. All right. So you got to watch. All right. Because before it's coming, there's going to be major signs before it's coming. And those signs are going to lead the world into sorrows and, great temptation. As the scriptures talk about the hour of temptation. All right. And mainly this is for those, who, pretty much is supposed to be getting their houses ready, supposed to be spiritually, fine tuning, your souls. All right. And neglecting or, forsaking this place and forsaking the lust of this world of the flesh, because this world, it feeds your flesh, and you don't want to be caught off guard when these things start to really come. Okay. Who then is a faithful and wise servant whom his Lord had made rule over his household, to give the meat in due season. All right. The meat is this knowledge, this understanding. Okay. Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Okay. A lot of people are going to get comfortable and get caught up in the changes, want to change with the world, not understanding that these changes is leading, the world to its damnation. Okay. All right. All right. Hebrews 2:1, it says, therefore we ought to give the more earnest heed to the things which we have heard, right? Including all the breakdowns and the understanding of the prophecy. Okay, especially for our time, because there's only a few, the main few. There's other prophecies happening as well. The devil being revealed, he being more stout than his fellows. The nation is, becoming angry and turning on Babylon the Great. That's all prophecy. Okay. So, lest at any time we should let them slip. Okay. For if the word spoken by angels was steadfast, and every transgression and disobedience received as just recompense of reward. Okay. Let's see here. This is what I did also. I'm not going to be long on this one. Today's central bank digital currency status. Well, they might as well. Here. So proof of concept. You got canceled. What was this? Finland or Norway? Excuse me. They canceled. Kenya, Ecuador. All right. But all of these nations, I mean, on the global stage, the standard is going to be CBDCs, and you're not going to be able to participate in, global trade without it. All right. And that's being clearly done in the Strait of Hormuz right now. Digital payment systems. Okay. But it's just a sign of, things to come. So we got nations that's researching it. This is the CBDC tracker. All right. Proof of concept pilot launched. All right. You got these nations who pretty much have CBDCs, and a lot more than you thought. And America's soon, they definitely soon will have, CBDCs. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Nero just said something about it. Let me see. Let's see if we can find something. All right. When was this? That was probably during his first term. that's news. But no, that ain't what's happening. Because he was just talking about a CBDC. Okay. Oh, this more scandal. You know, they lighting the fire under that Epstein thing again. You know, and they willing to trade on their own. You know, just for scandal to keep people's mind wandering. I'm talking about Melania. You know, but man, I just seen something with this. And you know, Nero, he is become Bitcoin rich, or you know, what do you call it, crypto rich. You know, all right, he's become very, you know, rich with crypto. So let's see here. I do have these two. I want to read these and I'll pretty much close out. Um, Country is going fully digital. Right, Tuvalu is on track to become the world's first fully digital nation as it plans to move its governance and administrative systems to the metaverse to preserve its culture and sovereignty amid rising sea levels. Other countries like the United Kingdom and New Zealand are also advancing their digital services significantly, with the UK leading in e-government initiatives. Right, they're also pushing for IDs, digital IDs. I asked that as well. You know, several countries are making significant strides toward becoming fully digital nations, with Tuvalu leading the way. This movement is driven by the need to enhance governance, preserve culture, and improve public services through digital transformation. All right. The first fully digital nation is on track to become the world's first fully digital nation. Reason: rising sea levels threaten its physical territory, prompting the government to move its governance and administrative systems to metaverse. Okay, so crises is pretty much what is pushing them to, you know, go fully digital. Okay, and that's going to be the same story for a lot of countries. All right, you know, they're going to say all types of things. It prevents fraud. It prevents, you know, if you know, a crisis would happen or whatever, you know, they could pretty much transfer everything over to the metaverse. Okay, so other notable countries advancing digitally, right? Government score. They got a score. United Kingdom, 95.3% comprehensive online access to public services. New Zealand, 92.1% Real-Me system for electronic registration. Japan, 88.8% My Number system for accessing administrative services. Okay. Key digital initiatives, e-government. Countries like the UK and New Zealand are enhancing their e-government services, making it easier for citizens to access essential public services online. Cultural preservation, excuse me. Cultural preservation. All right. Tavalu's initiative includes digitizing cultural heritage to maintain a connection to its identity, even as physical land is lost. Okay. These efforts reflect a broader trend where nations are leveraging technology to improve efficiency, transparency, and citizen engagement in governance. Right? It only gave us three, but of course there's more, you know. All right, so I asked this question: countries looking to establish digital ID. Since 37 countries have already implemented digital ID systems, and 9 more are in the process of creating them. This trend reflects a global shift towards enhancing secure identification methods for citizens. 7 countries implementing digital ID systems, identity.org. Digital IDs, 50 countries ranked by digital, let's see, nerd, ranked by digital ID requirements and privacy risks. More and more digital IDs are hailed by governments as a convenient way to prevent identity theft, access key services, example given health and social welfare benefits. And that's going to be a thing. It's definitely going to be a thing now, here in America, especially. Okay. Especially when things going awry, prices going up. And as the reset comes, of course, they definitely they're going to switch over. Okay. And for the love of me, I wish I could find that article, but I'm not going to waste my time. And I just ran into it. Okay. I think maybe yesterday, where I believe it said CBDCs. It was an article about Trump or Nero and CBDCs. But so it says this is in create efficient systems, and as the UK government is hoping to demonstrate, they may also help combat illegal immigration by making digital IDs a mandatory requirement for those seeking work. Yeah, and that was a big thing a few months back. The UK was pretty much making it a mandate for their people to have digital IDs. All right, so that they can work. And the guys is going to be because of immigration and illegals. You know, and to know who they're going to implement the digital IDs. All right, and you can't work without it. I believe one of the men in Parliament was saying that. So Comparitech researchers have released an in-depth study comparing digital ID requirements and privacy risks across 50 countries, finding that already 37 countries have implemented digital ID schemes. Additionally, 9 more are in the process of creating them. Additionally, this research comes along the same time that Apple has launched digital IDs for the United States passport holders. See, that's big too. Okay, let's see what they give us. And this a while back, last year. Apple launches digital IDs rolls out testing at more than 250 U.S. airports. Hmm. All right. They don't want to play the video, but we'll go back anyway. Rebecca Moody, head of data research at Comparitech, provided the following commentary. It goes without saying that digital IDs have their advantages, from providing easy access to online services and streamlining government processes to always having access to your ID wherever you go, so long as you've got your phone. But where digital IDs become a huge cause for concern from a privacy perspective is when they're introduced as a mandatory requirement or citizens find it difficult to perform certain tasks without one. They're used to surveil citizens' movements and activities, and or they're introduced under the guise of providing one solution, but soon become needed to access other key services. For example, Apple's digital IDs for US passports will no doubt be a hugely convenient service for US citizens and domestic travelers, as they'll eliminate the need to carry a physical passport. And as it stands, Apple says users' use of the digital ID won't be tracked, but over time it may be implemented in other sectors and for other services, which may increase the risk of surveillance and what is known as function creep. This is also the case with the UK proposed Brit card, which will only apply to those seeking work at first, but will likely expand to include other government services in time. Ultimately, digital IDs are often introduced as a convenient tool that might not seem to encroach on a user's privacy too much, but as more users adopt the ID and more services are added to it, it can quickly become an invasive method of government control. And once they become mandatory, like the UK's Brit card, there's no going back. Yep, that's true. Countries establishing digital ID systems. All right, so we know it's 37. All right, enhanced security, convenience, data. Okay, so these are the, all right, examples of countries with digital ID systems. So you got Singapore, India, Estonia, Sweden, Germany, Japan, Canada. Other countries are in development. All right, let's see here. What are the benefits? Okay, so yeah, I mean, as you can see, that's why it's important to watch. Because a lot of they don't care about the intricacies of the MOTB system, and these are the beginning stages or the layout of it. You know, First they go from talking to implementing, and then right before you know it, you're gonna be seeing these systems being played, and a lot of people gonna feel like they left behind, and a lot of people gonna be opting in, and yeah, and it's gonna be like, oh, I never knew this was here, but you ain't gonna have no choice but to, pretty much participate, you know. But if had you been watching what hour the thief was coming, you wouldn't, your house won't be broken up. And for sure, when these people take part in these new systems, their house is going to be broken up because they're not going to be able to go back from doing so. If you give them autonomy over your live person, your identification, your biometrics. That's all she wrote, you know, and you're not going to be able to, work outside of that system. Right? So yeah, it's very important. These are pretty much the intricacies of the MOTB system. It's the how this thing is actually being set up. Ultimately, the main thing or the final agenda is to tag you with the RFID. Put that inside a person. That way they already have your biometrics, but to even participate in a system that's coming, you're going to definitely need that tag, the RFID, you know, to even receive any resources or to buy or sell, as the scriptures say, you know. So let's see here. Well, that was pretty much it, you know. I can't hit you with this one, GNT, Ephesians 5:15 in the GNT. It says, "So be careful how you live. Don't live like ignorant people, but like wise people." Because the ignorant people ain't paying attention to these intricate, these minor things or these small things. They're ignoring them. They going about their life. They're ignoring these things, and these are going to be the things. These are the things that you're supposed to be looking out for before they implement the real deal. Because by the time they implement the real deal, that's going to be it. A lot of people going to feel like they left out. They're so behind, and they're going to have to opt in and make do all these things, uh, not knowing that they the this was all a setup. Okay, this is all a setup. See, had you known that the little things that they're doing now is going to lead to something worse, you know, you would be very, of course, mindful of it, you know, and not be caught off guard when they pretty much shut everything down and then reintroduce everything, uh, with this wrapped in this, this gift paper of lies, and and present, that chip, man. All right. So make you get you good use of every opportunity you have, because these are evil days, or yeah, these are evil days. Don't be fools then, but try to find out what the Lord wants you to do. So finding out the will of the Lord, because what we're supposed to be looking for, a new kingdom, supposed to be forsaken and forsaking this world, all right? And you're supposed to know the wiles of the devil, and the scriptures talk about, his trickery, because that's all this is really. It's just trickery. All right. So with that, hey, Lord willing, this was edifying. Until next time, I say shalom.